this afternoon. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to invite Chairman of OnePeople.sg, Mr. Zainudin Nordin, to give his opening address. Mr. Zainudin, please.
Good afternoon, fellow board members of OnePeople.sg, guest speakers, Ambassador Jacob Vinci, Mr. Janadas Devan, Director for IPS, community and religious leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's not easy, this is Saturday afternoon, but I'm very happy to see all of you here today. And I would like to warmly welcome you to today's conference. Now, this conference was initiated in 2009 as one of OnePeople.sg initiative to bring the stakeholders who are working so hard on the ground. Now, this biennial conference serves as a platform to engage community and religious leaders and provides a common ground in addressing critical issues concerning our social fabric. Now, today's conference aims to draw learning lessons from communal conflicts in history. Let us know that in conflict, as in war, no one wins. Victory is often short-lived, while the damage to lives of people can have lasting effects. From world wars to the Cold Wars, there is but one constant outcome, deep human suffering. Contrary to popular journalistic opinions, there is no such thing as a great war. No, peace, on the other hand, is hard to come by. Unfortunately, it is easy to lose. And it is certainly less expensive. In Singapore, we are very fortunate. Though we are a young country, Singapore's peace since independence has been, in fact, achieved through this long journey of us that we make together. As community and religious leaders, I think most of you would have traveled this journey, working tirelessly to bring communities together, bridging gaps and doing your part. And this is very important. Now, while some countries are embroiled in ethnic and religious disputes, we, on the other hand, we are gathered here today to speak of securing peace and harmony. This exemplifies how far we have matured as a society. And this, in my view, is something which a lot of people envy us. Now, Singapore's racial and religious harmony is indeed quite unique to the world. Nations, few and far between, can attest of 50 years of uninterrupted peace. This is something we can really be proud of, but we must never take peace for granted. We need to always safeguard ourselves from potential risk. Now, I would like to focus my address on key challenges confronting us in the area of social cohesion. Now, I spoke about this yesterday in Parliament, and I would like to reiterate this again. Maybe just to bring us all back to a little bit of background, let us put things in perspective. We know that Singapore of today is starkly different from Singapore of yesteryears. We are a more diverse and cosmopolitan city than what we used to be. That's very clear. Our resident population is also larger, and as an open city-state, we experience the impact of globalization, in fact, firsthand, right smack up there. We feel it straight. This has brought about quite a number of serious challenges, and we are facing it now, and most of our citizens and our younger generation are feeling it. Never before in our history have we experienced such rapid change, and what some have interpreted even as a challenge, direct challenge to the very core that what makes Singapore it is today, and what makes us Singaporean. So let me cover some of the things that we are facing. Of course, first is the hotly debated issue of integration between locals and foreigners, which we all hear about in coffee shop discussion in the cyberspace. Now, this discussion can vary from Ferrari to Kari. Incidents between locals and foreigners have brought about emotional outbursts. lots of it, often resulting in dissatisfaction among Singaporeans. The social media is at times loaded with comments on this topic. You can see it on a daily basis. We have also seen the other side of foreigners chiding Singaporeans also. It has come to a point where people they have asked this question, are Singaporeans xenophobic? Now, at the same time, this begs the question, are all new citizens reckless Ferrari drivers? So, the point is, we should view things in perspective. Not all things appear to be what it seems. So, we need to understand things better and just don't look at things on the surface. So, I would like to share a few things with you. A recent study by IPS between local-born and foreign-born naturalized citizens revealed interesting facts. These are study and data that we have obtained. The survey asked both groups to indicate characteristics that define Singaporeans. What do you think? While both groups differed on issues like NS, of course, and the use of English, they agreed on one important trait. That is, respect for multiracial and multireligious practices. This is one common thing which we have found that is the same. Now, both locals and naturalized citizens overwhelmingly felt that to be Singaporean, one must respect the multicultural way of life. Both agree on this. Another interesting point was that Singaporeans do not expect foreigners to culturally assimilate and behave like locals. We know this. We do not expect everybody to behave like Singaporean, right? We don't expect everybody to be kiasu and behave exactly like us. Singaporeans, in fact, were quite happy if immigrants were courteous, acknowledged important ideologies, and learned to live comfortably with the locals. So it's very simple, actually, our expectation. So these are indeed low barriers for new citizens to integrate into our community. But at the same time, I'm not dismissing the fact that we need to address some of the challenges that Singaporeans are facing. Nevertheless, it needs to be addressed not only by policies. We need to also involve the communities, because community efforts is as important as policies. At the policy level, it is already made known that there is an immediate need to calibrate the intake of immigrants so that Singaporeans do not feel displaced. There is a clear message. Government is doing this, and in the last debate, even on the white paper discussion, and the past 2 weeks when we discussed the budget. So it's very clear. But much of the dissatisfaction comes, in fact, from the high influx of migrants and foreigners in the recent years. So in the past few years, probably the feeling has been a little bit more exaggerated because of the high flow. So this has caused pressure on infrastructure, transportation, and also jobs. But let's face the reality. It is not that we are in such a bad state. It's not too bad. But we are somewhat feeling the squeeze, right? So the squeeze would be in our daily lives. Some feel the stresses when they decide to take the train every morning to go to work. So I hear people telling me, wow, today the train is so terrible, the bus is so crowded. So these are the common feedback that we get. So we are doing something about it. The government is making concerted efforts to look into these areas. Policy-wise, the government is working towards strengthening the Singaporean core as we welcome foreigners in a more calibrated manner. We want to make our home a vibrant city. We are a global city. We cannot run away from that. We have built Singapore from this principle of being open. We welcome people, and we want people who can contribute to Singapore to stand side by side Singaporeans and ensure that we do this together in a harmonious manner. So by the same measure as we do things to improve the situation, we should also acknowledge there are common ground that we can really take advantage of between the foreigners, the migrants, and our Singaporeans. Both of us desire to respect and protect Singapore's harmonious living. If we take this as the common vision and objective, then we can look at the glass, in fact, being half full rather than half empty. Right? We have something that is in common that we want to achieve. So we can encourage new citizens, even our foreign workers, to be involved in the community so that they can also be part of Singapore's daily life. And if they can identify some of the community causes, why not? Get them to be involved in community bonding and civic concerns. And through shared goals, bring opportunities for locals to connect with the new arrivals. These people-to-people interaction can, in my view, and must happen in the community on a daily basis. Then we will start to know each other better. Furthermore, we also know that we are living in a very digital and connected world. And the way we communicate has vastly changed. You know, when I was young, I recall there was a joke about people talking to themselves, you know. But nowadays, when you walk in Shenton Way, in the bus, you always see people talking to themselves. Because they're having the headphone and they're talking to somebody else, which is probably not 20, 30 kilometers, or even hundreds of kilometers, or even thousands of kilometers away. Back then, we laugh at people who talk to themselves. Now, it's so common. And then scolding people on the phone, you know, when they are angry. So, things have changed. Our young are using the phones, the smartphone, mobile pads, and everything, everywhere. And this is part and parcel of our daily life. So we are in fact one of the most connected cities in the world. Globally, we are one of the highest users of the internet. Smartphones, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatnots. So we ask ourselves, what does this all mean, right? So in fact, we have almost two parallel worlds going on. The real world that we have right in front of us, and also the virtual world that's running in parallel, that most of our people are involved in. Somehow or other, I do not know why, we feel obliged to update our lives on the Facebook, right? Somehow or other, we feel that people need to know that we are going to the toilet. I'm rushing to this restaurant. I'm as guilty as you. I do not know why, all of a sudden, there is this urge of updating your Facebook, your Twitter, and whatnots. So, there is these two that we cannot ignore. Now, apart from politics and policy, no, there are real things that always crop up. And this happens in the real world and also the social media, which from time to time will need our attention and really warrant our attention. As we have witnessed lately, unfortunately, there have been several incidents of online racism. This is indeed troubling. More recently, we had two youth who were arrested for derogatory postings online. These incidents show that fault lines can take root not only in the real world, but also in the social media and the virtual world. So what do? We, as the community leader, I think we must all get connected too, right? So we must plug in and stay vigilant and get connected so that we understand what's going on. Apart from being in the real world and doing all our good work. Why? Because the corrosive and derogatory remark and language, I think, must not be passed unchecked. The common line is, what is government doing? What is government doing? Let's face the reality. This is not something which is easily controlled by legislation. We cannot just say, okay, nobody is supposed to do this and everybody will stop doing it. That's the reality, because this is so open, it's so vast, and everybody can do it from whichever position they are. So I think we, in the community, we must start to play a part. So the authors of offensive content online tend to be among the minority. They are in fact the minority, they're not the majority. But if the majority remains silent, then the minority can become bolder. That's the danger. As leaders, we need to speak up when it happens. We must be the first to make a stand against hate speech. derogatory remark, racial remark that is negative. We must never allow peace in our country to be threatened by people who might be, unfortunately, naive, or they have ill intents, and they can go to the extreme. So, there is change, and this is what I call the era of new norm. We have now a vocal populace, because the fact that I carry a smartphone, all of a sudden my view must be heard. Everybody must know that I'm unhappy about this. So the populace is more vocal because it's easy, it's handy. So we must start to change too. We cannot just assume that everything is the same. And to me, you can look it from the positive side of things. We should ride on this voice of reason, and we can continue to initiate dialogues and discussion on issues that have not been spoken enough. So we look from the positive side and don't just take it from the negative, and make use of this as a way for us to start the discussion and even start to talk on things which in the past we were worried about, we are afraid to discuss, taboo and whatnot. So in tandem with the national conversation, we should create bottom-up conversations which bring to the fore challenges, of course, hopes and dreams of our fellow Singaporeans. Critical to this is how we view racial and religious harmony. Let us be honest about this issue and not gloss over differences. As community leaders, this is something we can spearhead from our doorsteps to community levels. We could take ownership of this cause. The outcome of this dialogue should cast values we stand for and values we stand for as Singaporeans. Now, we are privileged today, in fact, to have two guest speakers who will be able to share their vast experience and knowledge. Our distinguished guest speaker, Bosnia-Herzegovina's ambassador, His Excellency Jacob Finci. He is here to share firsthand learning lessons from Yugoslav wars. We have learned so many things about this, probably read about it and seen it on television. Now you are going to hear it firsthand from Ambassador Jacob Finci. His Excellency is in fact internationally renowned for peace-building efforts in Bosnia. He is an accomplished community leader and a leading light in the Jewish community. Ambassador Jacob is also the founder of the Inter-Religious Council in Bosnia and La Benevolencia, a Jewish cultural, education and humanitarian society. During the war in Bosnia, he saved the lives of many souls caught in between life and death. His charity work brought people of all faiths together, spreading the message of peace to a shattered country. His personal sharing will certainly give us exemplary lessons to draw from. Of course, our next guest speaker, Janadas Devan, which is a director for IPS, is a passionate advocate of our cause. And his vast experiences in political and domestic developments, I believe, will shed deep insights into today's conference theme. And in the later part of the day, our guest of honor, Acting Minister for Social and Family Development, Mr. Chan Chun Sing, will be joining us for the dialogue session. Now, Sister Teresa, an interfaith practitioner, is also with us today and would also be sharing her perspective during the panel discussion. So we can certainly look forward to an insightful and engaging conference. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our distinguished speakers for making time for this conference. And I think before they start, why don't we give them a warm round of applause to warm them up. I would like to also thank the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, the IRO, the Interreligious Organization, National Integration Council, the Thought Board for their kind contributions, and as well as Republic Polytechnic and Temasek Polytechnic for their support. Now, I would like to leave you with a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, and I quote her: "It isn't enough to talk about peace, one must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it, one must work at it," unquote. So as community leaders, we are the people who are going to continuously be involved in this work. And I would like to thank you again, and I wish you a pleasant afternoon ahead. Thank you very much.